We are making sure that all have joined, have been admitted into our virtual room. And I apologize, there was a mix-up. I think when the board packet got updated, it didn't get put back online. And so Stephen has worked very closely with Spencer to get it back up there, so it is back up there now. And so we welcome you to this meeting. It is about board learning and board training and communication and lots of business on the agenda. And before we move into the first part, Daniel, this is a very important time of year. We always recognize the many talents and the many hands that make it possible to be a school and to work with our children and our families. This week is especially designated to honor that, and Daniel has a resolution from the board.
Sorry, my computer died, but it's seconds away.
The suspense.
Yeah, this is intense. Sorry, everyone. Okay, I move that on this 6th day of May.
Wait. My bad. That's on me. We're called to order. Let's first look at our agenda. I don't think I officially called us to order, and I apologize for that. So welcome, and now that we are officially called to order, take it away.
Yeah, so I move that on this 6th day of May, 2026, whereas our future as a community depends on well-educated community members, and whereas educating those citizens well depends on committed and talented educators, and whereas those talented and committed educators rely on a dedicated staff to operate our schools and support their occupants, and whereas the Washington Central District is proudly committed to continually improving the education it provides to its students, and whereas in this current moment of uncertainty and change in our state's education system, Washington Central educators have continued to show up for students and families every day and demonstrate their commitment and dedication with clear and unambiguous passion for their work. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors for the Washington Central Unified Union School District here and now, thank our district teachers and staff for their service and celebrate them during this Teacher Appreciation Week.
Thank you, Daniel. Is there a second?
Unanimous.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. So then we will move forward to any adjustments to the agenda. A reception of any of our guests, welcome. And we especially welcome Debbie Singeiser, who will be leading us in our learning tonight. And now is the time for public comments. So if you would like to have an opportunity for public comment, please raise your hand either online or here so that I can calculate out our time. So we have 3. Any online?
4.
Okay. So we have 4, plus Jody is also going to have a statement during that. So I would say that we could adjust the time to 2 minutes. So the first person.
Hi, my name is Juliana Jensen, and I've been a resident in East Montpelier for the past 25 years.
Is it turned on? There isn't.
There isn't anyone. Yeah, so, well, you could go to that mic right over there.
Does it bother you if I come on the other side? Because it would be easier. No, I'll stay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Hello. My name is Juliana Jensen. I've been a resident in East Montpelier for the past 25 years. Two of my kids have gone through the district, and one still does. I'm also a preschool assistant at the Community Connection Program in East Montpelier. And I would like to share my concern regarding how this preschool issues has been handled. Months ago, the board made the decision to combine Calais and East Montpelier pre-K and kindergarten programs at EMES. And this decision, the financial portion of this decision, is what is included in the budget that got approved by a majority of the voters. And the decision came out of some tough financial realities, especially after Calais voted to keep their school open, which led to cuts in areas like nursing, United Arts, front office support, counseling, and etc. Since then, this decision has been brought back up again at each board meeting. Each time the administrator, who are our expert, and we rely on them, have shared clear data that was the result of objective analysis, not opinions or rumors, that supported the plan. It seemed to settle things down in the moment, but then the same question came back at the next meeting and the cycle starts over. I do understand people in Calais having strong feelings about this, and I respect that. This isn't about the quality of their teachers or their staff. It's about making sure our youngest learners are getting consistent full-time support. But keeping this conversation going on for months is creating a concerning division in our communities. Changing the decision would set a troubling precedent. It would make it harder to trust the process. It would create instability and uncertainty for family, staff, and the district as a whole. I know they're hard decisions, and this is a thankless job that you're doing. But your role is to make sure that students receive the best services available. At some point, we need to move forward, though. We are facing severe challenges in our educational system right now, and I worry that too much time has been spent on this one issue while other important needs are being put aside. We need your leadership to focus on what's ahead. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Flor, for serving as chair. Your selfless sense of duty, of equality, and justice is a true inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana. Next person. And is the mic working, Spencer? Okay.
Hello. Hi, my name's Katie Marshall. I'm a resident of Middlesex, and I have two young children. I'm a kindergartner at Rumney and a pre-K student at Berlin. I, too, am here tonight to both thank you for your service and echo what Juliana said. I know this is thankless, and these issues keep coming back around, but I think I also want to affirm the administration's plan for the 3-hub model for pre-K next year that was communicated in January. I personally have helped a lot of families through the application process and assured them that this is a model that the pre-K working group and the administration feels strongly is the best options for our youngest learners. It wasn't developed casually or in a vacuum. It came out of extensive work by the pre-K working group, community engagement, analysis of the enrollment numbers, and consideration of geography, staffing, and budget realities. It was communicated early and clearly, which was really appreciated. And our district is putting forward a plan that provides a 5-day-a-week, full-day option at 3 locations with the support of the Community Connections program, which is really exceptional and for all of us with young children, greatly appreciated. I know these are emotional conversations, especially for families experiencing changes in their local schools, but I believe that the responsibility that all of us have and the district has is to create a stable and equitable system that can serve families in all 5 towns well over time, especially given shifting demographics and budget realities. Our families experienced this firsthand. We have an older child in kindergarten at Rumney this year, and we have my 3-year-old in pre-K at Berlin. So, honestly, that was not our ideal plan this year, but it has really been excellent It's a credit to the staffs at both of those schools. And, I think we've had just such a positive experience and both children are thriving. So I share this because I think it's important to remember that when families trust our educators and administrators, children really can succeed and feel supported in different settings. Since January, families across the district have been making plans based on the understanding that Rumney, Berlin, and East Montpelier will each host full-day pre-K programs next year. As all of us who have navigated childcare for children know, that's not something to take lightly, and the thought of a plan changing right now would be kind of catastrophic to especially working families. So we really need the district to uphold this plan. I'm asking the board to support the administration's plan, uphold that direction, and communicate clearly and consistently with families. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. The next person?
I don't know if I can make this a little higher. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kayla Garone, and I'm a parent at East Montpelier. I've had a child in the EMES preschool program for the past 2 years, and my daughter is supposed to start there this fall. I'm here because what's happening, or might be happening, does not feel equitable or stable for families. We are in May. Families have made plans. Children are preparing for their first school experience, and yet we are possibly reopening a decision that was already made through a thoughtful, data-informed process. The district's own pre-K plan states that programs need sufficient enrollment to provide a high-quality experience, and that the current EMES configuration supports staffing, special education access, and sustainable programming. Equity does not mean moving the largest group of students to accommodate the smallest. Equity means ensuring that the greatest access to strong, stable programming for all children exists. And beyond that, our kids deserve consistency, staff deserve consistency, families deserve consistency. At the last board meeting, people spoke about the importance of making decisions and standing by them because reopening them erodes trust. I agree. Please keep preschool at EMES and allow these children and families to move forward with certainty. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. And there was one more person before Jody. Well, Jody, come on up.
I'm wondering what I can say about pre-K. Hi, Jody Emerson, Superintendent Director of Central Vermont Career Center. Thank you for sending me Floor previously, Patrick previously, and Andrew now, all of which have been part of our facilities work, and hopefully gave you some hints along the way that this campus has been considered when we think about expanding access. We just had a work group that started meeting at the end of December and worked straight through until the last Monday of April, and came forth with a recommendation to our facilities committee last night, of which Andrew is actually our chair, and recommended that we come back to this campus as a possible second location. So a multi-campus model where we would maintain some programming at Spalding, and we would build a building here and open some programming here, so split, allowing more access, more programming for students. This aligns with what the legislature is working on, and kind of sets U32 up as becoming one of the comprehensive high schools of the future that they're working towards. If it becomes the regional high school of the future, if you continue conversations with other schools that are, say, in floodplains, we could end up expanding to our full campus here, and this could be the regional comprehensive high school of the capital region. So I wanted to just make sure you were aware of that discussion. It has not gone to my full board next, but it will on Monday night. And at that point, we'll be reaching out for steps on how do we start talking about whether there is any reality to this. But what I can say about pre-K is we are starting an early childhood education next year. We have 12 students enrolled in the program for next year, which is a great start. And we will be collaborating with East Montpelier pre-K. So there are some great connections already happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. And so what we are noting is that this is the beginning of the conversation, and so just as people, if people feel like, what? Don't worry, we have plenty of time to address that what and that. So, all right, we will move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the, Debbie Singeiser will now begin the facilitation of our board learning.
Get out your bingo cards.
There we go. So do you think it's absolutely necessary I have a microphone? Yes. Oh, boy. Oh, okay. So what I need is a third hand. I'll put my clicker here in my back pocket. All right. So good evening, board and audience. When I do board trainings, I don't usually have people watching, so this is unusual for me. So if you get bored, I welcome you to leave. You do not have to stay. You won't hurt my feelings, but you all must stay. My name is Debbie Singeiser, and I am the Director of Board Services at the Vermont School Boards Association. I know some of you from various events that we've had, including the conference. So it's nice to see you again. But for some of you, I don't know you yet. So what I'd love to do is I had planned an exercise. Oh, first, let me ask you this. Is Julia online? Yes. Julia, hi. Hi, Julia. Hello. So you can participate in this as well, Julia. I wanted to do a little exercise to get to know, first of all, who you are, how long you've been serving on the board, and also to make it a little bit more interesting than just saying, hi, my name is, and I've been serving for this long. I would like you to tell us something that you could teach everybody in this room, something that you could teach us to do, something that you might be able to teach us to understand, to learn about. So for example, I know we have so many interests outside this room, so you may not know this about me, but you know my name, you know I work for the VSBA, but if you asked me to teach you something, I would teach you how to make, does anybody know Ethiopian food? I could help you, I would teach you how to make Ethiopian food because I lived in that country for 5 years. And when I came back to Vermont, I couldn't find Ethiopian food anywhere. So I had to teach myself how to make injera and shiro. So I could totally teach you that if you're interested. That's just to get your thinking going. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but is there somebody who'd like to go first? Go ahead, David.
My name is Dave Lowther. I've been on the school board for just a few months now, new this year. And if I was going to teach people something, it might be GIS or computer mapping.
Wonderful, thank you. David, how many years have you served, you said?
This is my first year.
Your first year, okay.
I would also eat the Ethiopian food.
You would, all right. Next time I come. I think that sounds like a good. Marty, you want to go next?
Sure. I could teach people about discourse communities, which is a way that we use language that sort of identifies who we are and what our groups are and how we think. I could also teach about timber stand improvement, since I've worked in the forest most of my life.
Oh, very cool. How long have you been serving on the board, Marty?
2 months.
Oh, wow, so you're a new one as well.
New, yeah.
First year, congratulations. Now I feel compelled to go in a row. Elizabeth, do you want to go next?
I was honestly trying to figure out how many years I've been doing this. Not long. I ended up stepping in for somebody that left. So this, I believe it's like 1.5 years at this point.
Okay.
And this year will be my last year on the board or serving, potentially, we'll see. Gosh, if I could teach or share anything, I really love child development and early ed. I also really love human development and psychology, so I know a lot about that. And the attachment theory and regulation and self-regulation in children and adults.
I could use some of that.
Yeah, we all could.
Michelle.
Okay, so this is, I think, the start of my 3rd year on the board, but I'm really familiar with this board because I was here for a long time prior to being on a board. And you kind of stole it because I would, like, if I was going to teach something, I love to challenge myself, and so I love to, like, cook, bake. I talk with my culinary teacher at my tech center all the time, and have been invited to come in and talk with the students because that's kind of fun for me.
Thank you. Natasha's up.
Hi, Natasha, I think 4 years, give or take. And this will probably come as no surprise to anybody on this board, but I would teach people how to disrupt and agitate.
Disrupt and agitate. Okay, we had David go. Floor, you would be next.
Hi, Debbie. My name is Flor. I've been in the board for, I don't know, 16 years plus, but the unified board, since 2019 when we unified, obviously. If I were to teach something, I'm going to try to keep it fun, like Debbie was saying, so trying to think about outside my work. It would either be dancing. I love to dance, and people might not know that, and I've taught before either classical dancing or any Latin American dance. So, and it's a great way of building community and bringing people together.
Ursula.
I'm Ursula Stanley. I've been on the board 5-ish years. And if I was going to teach anybody anything, I would teach them the Zentangle method. I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, and it is an art form that gives you it's a, I'm blanking on the idea, abstract art using primarily black ink pens, but it is expanded out to any media you can draw with, we can create with.
And what did you call it? Untangled?
It's Zentangle method.
Untangled method. Very cool. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick Welly, Middlesex. I think 3 years on the board, and I would teach you about the moon.
The memory?
The moon.
Oh, the moon.
I'm Zach Sullivan from East Montpelier. I've been on the board just shy of 3 years. And if you wanted to run off and join the circus, I would teach you how to juggle.
Hi, Stephen Dellinger-Pate, the superintendent. This is my 2nd year in that role. I've been in the district for 12 years now. And if I were going to teach you anything, it would be geometry, because I absolutely love it.
I love geometry.
Well, math phobe.
No, I love math, hate geometry, but that's okay. So maybe you could help me, because.
I can.
Diane Nichols-Fleming, I've been on the board. I came on the board a week before shutdown on COVID, so that was interesting. So that's been 6 years. And I am an advanced TV remote control user, so I can teach anyone exactly how to scan those channels very quickly to get to them.
Hard to follow up on that one. My name is Chris McVeigh, and 2 things I could teach you. One, the impractical is to how to navigate Vermont's workers' compensation system, because that's what I do for work. The more practical one would be to how to go out to my chicken coop, open the door, get 7 eggs that they usually lay, and then close the coop all with one hand and not drop an egg. That's the practical teaching. 7, yeah, yeah.
But 8 you would drop.
I only have 7 chickens, so you're pressing them into service they cannot survive.
I'd just like to point out Diane also indirectly revealed she's a stand-up comedian. My name's Daniel. I've been on the board 4 years, and in another life I was a distiller, so I could teach us all how to make distilled spirits.
And my name is Andrew Boy. I've been on the board for roughly 2 months as well. I could teach folks about a few of my more unhealthy habits. I collect board games, and a copious amount of them, actually. It's really a problem, says my wife. So I could teach you all about board games and game theory. I also love libations as well, but of the coffee variety. I've gone down a slippery slope, and I could teach you about all types of brew methods. So I'm deep in home brew right now, so.
Very cool. And how about Julia?
Hi, I'm Julia Hewitt. I've been on the board for about 1.5 years, and I could teach you how to fail at being retired. I taught for about 35 years at the high school level, was retired for a hot minute, and jumped right back in at the community college level.
Thank you all very much. That was great. We were going to do this exercise, but we decided I wanted to do that one instead. Any idea why that might not be moving? There we go. Thank you. All right, so what we have in front of you here is our session goals. So by the end of our 2 hours together, I hope that we will have achieved these things. I worked with Stephen and Diane on the design and the format of this training that we're having. So I hope that we'll achieve a relatively common level of understanding of board roles and responsibilities, board oversight, as well as board decision-making, and that'll include different types of information and what we do with those different types of information. So I'm keeping it very general and vague because I don't want to give away the ending to the story quite yet. All right, so let's begin. Anybody know what this is? I hope. Say it again.
Our mission statement.
Your mission statement, that's right. This is your mission statement. This is a great place to start whenever you're in a board meeting or a board event like this. Has anybody ever heard of the organizational development consultant, motivational speaker, Simon Sinek? Yeah, so he wrote a book and did a very famous TED Talk called Start With Why. And in this book, he suggested that great leaders and organizations that are more successful at inspiring action when they start with focusing on their purpose, their why. Why do they exist? Before they start talking about or really thinking about their products or their services that they offer, which is their how. Companies and organizations that start with this question, why, and promote it widely out into the community and to the markets that they're in, before they start saying what it is that they're selling, they tend to be more successful at making those sales. And this does apply to school districts. What do you think a school district's why is?
their students and their lifelong success and student outcome.
Right? So if you were to write it down, what would it look like? It would be a vision or a mission statement. In your case, it's a mission statement. So, and your why says it right here, that this district exists so that your students, all students, will, you'll nurture and inspire in them passion, creativity, and power to contribute to their local and global communities. So this is your Washington Central Unified Union School District's why. And it's really important as board members that we are able to keep this in the forefront of our minds at meetings, when we're out in the community. And it's not only important that we as board members do this, but it's also important that we promote it as widely as possible. So I noticed that you have it already on some of your board documents, such as the board agenda. Your board minutes has it written at the top, which is fantastic. Another thing you may want to consider doing as a board member is putting it in your email signature, so that whenever somebody receives an email from you, they'll see the mission statement. Because it's really important that everybody in the district, your students, your staff, your community members, that they know what this why is and that they can be part of it. One thing I did notice when I was looking at your website, and this is more of a note for Stephen, is that the mission statement is kind of buried on the website. It took several clicks to get there. So one suggestion I would have is to kind of put it on your homepage so that when somebody goes to the website, that's the first thing they see, right? I mean, it'd be nice to have it at the top, at a banner or something like that. All right, so this is a great way to kind of ground ourselves into why. Why are we here? Why do we give up our time to be a board member? Starting with this statement. So let's dive right into board responsibilities. At the VSBA, we like to encourage boards to think about their primary responsibility by considering these two words: governance and management. Governance and management are closely related, but they do sit at different levels of an organization. So let's look at them one at a time. Governance comes actually from the Greek language, and it means to steer. More specifically, it is the function of setting direction, ensuring accountability, and overseeing performance. And it's typically carried out by roles such as board of directors, trustees, board members, governing bodies. Those are just some of the titles that you might hear. Governance responsibilities include defining your purpose, your why, the mission or the vision statement, establishing policies, ensuring compliance with those policies, and ensuring ethical conduct. Another responsibility in governance is holding management accountable for performance. So in short, governance decides what should be done and why it should be done. And then it makes sure that it's done, and it's done well. That's governance. On the other side, we have management. Management comes from the Latin language, and it means hand. El mano in Spanish, le main in French. Means literally to handle. It is the function of planning, of organizing, and executing work to achieve certain goals. And titles that you might hear are things like a chief executive officer or CEO, executives, managers, team leaders. The responsibilities of management are implementing the strategy, allocating resources, running the day-to-day operations, and supervising staff and delivering results. So in short, management decides how things get done, and then they get it done. So unlike governance, which is more about the what and the why, management is more the how. Both of these functions are essential to the success of a school district. So a question for you is, given this information, which of these functions do you think that you as a board is responsible for? And you're smiling because I think the answer is obvious. Yeah, for sure, governance. And therefore, the superintendent is responsible for the management. And that is correct. A board governs the district while the superintendent manages it. And to be an effective board member, it's really important to understand what governance is and what it is not, and who is responsible for which part. An effective board will focus on the governance and leave the management to the superintendent. And when there's clarity around these respective roles and responsibilities, the board and the superintendent can work in partnership to move that entire district, your entire district forward towards that mission, towards your why. I forgot something at the beginning. I was so excited about all your answers about what you could teach us. It totally went out of my head. But, and Julia, I apologize because you don't have one. I handed out something at the beginning of the board training, which are called, it's Board Leadership Bingo. And I do have prizes. So as we go through the training, if you hear any of these words said by me or said by one of you, please cross it off. And if you get bingo, please don't be shy, yell it out.
Are we doing this retroactively?
Huh? You can do it retroactively, because I just realized I used a couple of the words and it went off in my brain. Yes. I also wanted to say, at the beginning, after listening to all of you go around and talk about how many years you've served on the board, there is a lot of experience in this room, and I don't pretend to be the expert. I get paid to do this training, and I enjoy it very much, but I actually learn a lot when I do these trainings from boards. I'm a board member myself. I was chair for 6 years. I just stepped off because I felt like it was time. And I'm delighted not to be in the chair role right now. I'm the chair of, or I'm on a board of 5, so we're a bit smaller than you guys. And we're a K through 12 district, and we're part of a supervisory union. So similar, but yet different in terms of our governance structure. All of this to say is I take away just as much, probably more, than what I'm able to give when I do these trainings. So please jump in at any time if you want to add something, or if you want to ask a question, if you want to ask a question of each other. This is your time, your opportunity to learn from each other. Okay? All right, so. How many school board members does it take to screw in a light bulb? Any guesses?
None for psychologists.
None for psychologists?
Quorum is required to decide to do it.
We don't do work, we tell Stephen to do it.
Bingo. Well, not yet, but I didn't get bingo, but you got the answer right. So congratulations, David. None. You are right. The board says we need light, right? That's what the board says. So this is not a joke about effort, right? I mean, it's easy to say, give us some light. It's another thing to do it. But it is really a lesson about the different responsibilities of the board and the superintendent. So as a school board, our job is not to screw in the light bulb. Our job is to say, hey, we need some light in here. And that means in the equivalence, in the context of a school district, that means things like, why does our school district exist? What do our students need to know and learn how to do? And what does success look like for our schools and our community? So we engage with our community and we listen to them and we translate their wishes and their values into a clear vision or mission statement, which is what you have. And that's our work. That's us helping to define the why of our district, but we don't do it as a board, we do it with the input of the community. And once that vision or mission is set, we step back and we hire a very capable individual, better known as a CEO or superintendent, who is empowered, and we empower them to figure out the how. How does he provide this light? How does he allocate the resources that are needed? How does he design and implement the programs? How does he run the day-to-day operations and management of the overall district? Now, does this poor one individual do this work alone? God, I hope not. No. He decides it's what kind of light we need to have. That's very important. And then he designates his or her staff to do the actual work to screw in the light bulb. Because this is their expertise. It's not ours, it's the superintendent's. It's not our job to manage the schools, it's our job to govern the schools and to steer that ship, not to row it. Are we done? After we say, okay, superintendent, we need light, it's up to you to decide what kind of light we need, and it's up to you to hire the people to actually do the work and screw in the light bulb? No, we're still not done. We also have to monitor. We have to monitor the progress that's being made in achieving the district goals and the progress in moving our district closer to that mission. We also must evaluate. We must evaluate the performance of the superintendent, and not surprisingly, the performance of a superintendent is very much closely aligned with district goals. So remember, in this kind of silly little example, it's very simple, but I kind of like it because it's so simple. The board says we need light. The superintendent decides how to make it happen. And then the board monitors and evaluates the lighting system. So clarity around these roles and responsibilities is what makes governance effective. You may have heard the term good governance before. That's what this means. It's that hyper clarity around board roles, superintendent roles, board responsibilities, superintendent responsibilities. Any questions or discussion about this before we hop into a scenario where we're going to actually kind of apply it? Comments, questions? It's a very basic kind of, you're getting what we always start our new board member training with. This is the kind of, these slides are exactly the slides I'll be using tomorrow when I do work with the new members who have been elected in the last couple months. If anybody's coming, Andrew? Yeah. Yep.
If the board doesn't like the quality of the light, they have a direct conversation with the superintendent to say, change it. Is that right?
What do you guys think? I know there's thoughts around the table here. I saw one go up quickly. Yeah, Ursula.
The board probably should have set parameters around the type of light or amount of light that they wanted prior to sending the superintendent off to go make there be light. So, right, we could go, hey, you didn't meet our needs. And if we forgot to do that, I guess we would retroactively give guidance on we need it to be
Certain.
a certain number of light levels, how many lumens it is.
Okay.
We'll get
Maybe
into
with like a light bulb in every classroom or something, right? Like not just the main foyer.
So the board has a directive action in that respect.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that. That's the second topic of the training is oversight.
So what if the conditions change and like the building got bigger? So do you just let the superintendent decide what he's going to do with light, or do we come back in and give parameters?
And that does happen. Sometimes things change significantly to the point where it is important for the board to maybe not step in right away, but ask some deeper questions. And again, we're going to talk about those types of conversations as part of the conversation we have about oversight. The last, I mean, we don't want to be, it's kind of that, and it's that fine line between, and it's as clear as day on paper, and it's as clear as mud in practice, right? It's not easy work. It seems simple, and this probably oversimplifies a little bit, but when you're doing the actual work, it can get a little fuzzy and unclear. So it's really important as a board to have these conversations and to have that level of trust where you can say, I'm confused. Is this really what we should be doing as a board? And it's also inherent, I think, on a superintendent to say, hey, board, hang on. I'm sensing that you're kind of coming a little close to my realm of responsibility, which is management. And he can only do that when if it's a safe enough environment to voice concern to the board, and that the board will receive it openly. Yeah.
I appreciate your comment about change, because I think that's where I think we are right now in the education landscape.
Yes.
I also feel like one of the questions that I have, if we go back to the lighting, and I really like it because it is so simple, but what happens when some of the people in the community are doing beautifully with the lighting, they're thriving, they love it, and others, that it might be too bright or too dark, and there's an inconsistency across the entire community about what works and what doesn't.
And you don't have to answer it. Yep.
Oh, no.
Yep. Go ahead, Fleur.
Can I share something?
Sure.
And just going back to the light, is that one thing that we haven't mentioned is that we're measuring the light based on what we want for student outcomes, right? We're not measuring the light just in, we've been elected as trustees, and and I'm not going to get into all of that conversation, but we've been elected to do what is best for all of our students. So if we're saying to our superintendent, we need light in order to, these are the student outcomes. This is what we know, because we should know how our students are doing. This is what we know that our students are, how they're doing right now. Can you please, with this criteria, make sure, I'm not going to use a light bulb. I'm going to use the sender unit in East Montpelier Elementary School. So it's the unit that puts the air in fresh air intake and outtake. And when we were designing that, what you do is you make it work for how many kids are in the room or how many adults are in the room, and it changes. And that way I'm using that is just similarly, it's harder to do with the light, even though sometimes we do it. It changes depending on those parameters that we have set and the expertise they have. So if what Elizabeth was saying, if it's not doing, like or I think it was Chris, if they're not doing well, we are monitoring through our education quality the outcomes, and oh my God, they're not doing well. So ask back the questions, what are the things that we need to do in order to improve the outcomes of our students? We are still not telling them to change their, because they're the experts, but we are asking the probing questions to bring on a change. That's what how I will interpret it.
Yep, and that's why I'm kind of avoiding the answer, because we're really going to dig into that oversight and questions, because I think questions are very much are critical to a board's job, and asking questions is an important part of what we should be doing.
So, but we're going to get there, I promise, we're going to get there. Because those are very good questions, both of yours. Let's do a scenario. We're going to have you work in, well, there's an odd number, I realize. So I'm thinking we do 3s. Are you divisible by 3? Are you 15? 1, 2, 3. No, I think Julia's online.
Julia's online. If the rest of us are all here, that would leave us third.
I can do Julia and me online.
Can you? Okay.
Is that okay with you, Julia?
Julia, do you want to work with Floor? So we have Andrew, Daniel, and Chris, Diane, Stephen, and Zach, Patrick, and Ursula,
We'll pull.
and David. Yeah, do you want to switch? Yeah. And then we still have 4, but 4's fine. I mean, as long as, and Natasha, if it's easier for you to move down there, feel free to go down there, whichever's easier. So I'm going to put up a scenario, and Julia, you're going to work with Floor, if that's okay.
Here, we'll just scooch.
Actually,
Floor, stay. We'll scoot.
yeah, that's fine.
So challenging.
So Julia, can you see the question on the screen? I don't know how to turn this off. Is this a touch screen?
Spencer might be able to get rid of that.
It's not on mine.
No, it's on Spencer's, I think.
Oh, here it is. Hang on. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So can you read the screen? So I'll read it out loud for those who can't see the screen. It's, should the board try to influence the hiring or firing decisions? So here's the scenario. A board member applies for an open staff position. During a board meeting, some board members inform with subtle pressure the superintendent what a great choice this former board member would be. The superintendent says or conveys that he doesn't believe that that pressure is appropriate, and then it falls outside the board's role. So my question is, what action, if any, should the
My
board
ringer
take?
was off.
Okay, I just figured it would be better with.
And what action, if any, should the superintendent take? Okay, so think about it from the board's perspective and also from the superintendent's perspective. And if you have any follow-up questions, you might have to make some assumptions here about things, but do the best you can. So about 5 minutes.
I put it here too in case we want it closer. I'm old and that's too far away and I don't want to wear my glasses.
That's probably an improvement. That's probably.
And the board needs to step. Right, got it. The superintendent should be, like, this doesn't tell you where they are in their whole hiring, firing process. This isn't a hiring process. If we assume it's at the beginning, the superintendent would be the one who has to dictate, like, who's part of the hiring. You know what I mean?
5 minutes. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and then we'll talk about it as a big group.
But they have a hiring process. But if they did that,
At some point there's recusal, but I don't think
the superintendent, unless they knew and worked with, which, again, there's another assumption we have to make, say. Right, okay, so if we wanted to assume that it was a superintendent who had been a long-sitting superintendent who had worked with that board member previously, the superintendent should recuse themselves very rarely, with the exception of principal. I don't believe our superintendents. Yeah. So ultimately reviews it, but usually you get people within that, right? Like, so if it's an educator at Worcester, right, it would be Worcester teachers. And maybe, right, if it was a special educator that was going to Worcester, you would maybe get like George Pritchard or something. I'm getting very specific now because we have people But it comes down to the superintendent has to review and approve, and then it all comes back to us. We get to see that list of people. But we literally get no information except for like that application and what the
This
process
seems
was
like,
like.
to answer this like directly, you know, maybe the board would want to reaffirm the fact that they are not involved in those processes and end that practice of commenting on those things
Right.
in that way.
And maybe, right, I guess if this was it uses plural board members, right? So then it would be on the board chair to maybe go, hey, maybe we need a refresher course on what our roles are. And maybe it's a short one, maybe, right, like if thinking about the size of our board, maybe it's different when you have a board of 5 or 10 or we have 15. If it's half, that's do the whole board as a training. If it was 2 people, we'll take them aside and sit and have a conversation, right? Right. The board chair should hold that up, and the rest of the board members need to take a deep breath and step back. Yeah, because I was gonna say, it gets weird with hiring and everything, because we have policies around staff, and like, it could be a whole in-depth study, I guess.
And then I guess the superintendent just would disregard those comments or informing in there.
Yeah, and I guess if they felt that they couldn't, right? You would then.
So I always prepare for, let's try to draw a line in the sand, but understanding that it's not always going to be that way. I think that's a good term. Yeah, it's a balance. Yeah. Absolutely. Balanced approach. I'm still on the Barstow, but it's a small, school, Barstow. It's Barstow School District. We're part of the Rutland Northeast Supervisory. So we're along Water Valley. Yeah, so I have 2 towns in my unified school district. And then we're part of an SU. 6 other towns. Yeah. Yeah. What is your first name?
My name is Barry.
Nice to meet you, Barry Burns. Nice to meet you. All right. Did I just drop something? How'd we do? Oh, that silly microphone. How are we doing? Thoughts, ideas, suggestions? You want to start with the board? What action, if any, should the board take?
Julia?
Julia?
Yes? Oh, I didn't know everyone could hear me.
Yeah. Don't say anything negative about anybody.
I've never.
Okay. Did Julie want to go, or should I call on somebody else? Okay. Elizabeth. Okay.
Our group decided that the board should not provide subtle pressure to the superintendent, and so there is not an action that the board should be taking in this situation.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Yeah, to build on that, I think the action that we decided to be taken in line with that is just to reaffirm proper processes in lieu of action. So the action would have been to just reaffirm what the proper process would be outside of, quote, subtle pressures, end quote.
Oh, you're just on the board now, as opposed to superintendent?
No, we can jump into superintendent. Yeah, go ahead.
And so we thought that the superintendent should also be forthright and bring it to the board and say, this is where, this situation is my responsibility to interview and hire or recommend the person I think. And the board members should not be making subtle recommendations and just be that blunt so that, it's not throwing anybody under the bus or calling them out, but just reestablishing where the decision points are in that process.
Good. Other thoughts?
And then the superintendent should disregard
Oh.
the superintendent should disregard the subtle comments, the subtle pressure.
And then did you say that again?
The superintendent should disregard the
subtle
informing
pressure, yeah.
Subtle pressure.
Yeah. Any other thoughts or ideas? Ursula?
I had added to if the superintendent felt they couldn't ignore it, right? If they had close relationships with people on the board that were giving some pressure, they could always recuse themselves and appoint a designee.
Did Julia unmute herself for a second?
I did for a second. Flora and I talked about the fact that if this happened during the board meeting, that some board members were suggesting to the superintendent and indirectly or however that this person would be a great choice, that others who were there and recognized that that was not within the board's purview should shut it down and just step up and say, hang on, folks, this is a decision that is not up to us.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the answer, if you will, to this scenario is that, yes, the board has delegated responsibilities and given that authority to the superintendent to do the hiring. It is incumbent upon board members to remind each other of this. And so I liked what you were saying, Julia, that it's all of our responsibility when we see something slipping to remind our board colleagues, well, hey, hang on a second. This is something to do with operations. I don't think this is where we need to be. I also think the superintendent can gently remind the board in a constructive criticism kind of way that hiring staff is an operational task and that he has been authorized to do that. It's been delegated to him.
So
Yep.
flip the scenario.
Yep.
And where it's the superintendent is interviewing, hiring his best buddy, stood up for me at my wedding and that type of situation. And the board is getting a sense that this person is not as qualified as other candidates. What's the board's role in that situation?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I have never encountered that, but that seems a little bit like a conflict of interest if I've ever heard one. What would you do as a board if Stephen came and recommended his assistant be the guy who was the best man at his wedding? And not necessarily.
Not the best qualified.
So, I mean, I think that does fall into the oversight question of, I have a very hard time seeing that happening in a scenario where, all processes are being followed, all, your conflict of interest rules are being, obeyed, et cetera. I think to get into that scenario, you have to sort of run across some of the oversight tripwires where the board would have a legitimate role to say, whoa, it's not about this one person. It's about are you actually complying with the things that we've set out as policy? And I don't know if. I'll reconsider if you can come up with a case where you would meet all of those and still be in that situation. I'm just having a very hard time getting there.
Well, who's enforcing who's enforcing the various tripwires, like conflict of interest?
We are.
We are, right. So we would have to step in that situation where there's a hiring, even though at least in some instances, hiring is not completely out of our responsibility, but in some situations it is. So there's still that oversight and, just as we would expect the superintendent to call us out and say, you know what, that's not really, we should be able, I think we have this responsibility to do the same thing if we see it as violating a bunch of our norms.
One final comment on this, because we do have to move on. Yeah, Flor or
I was gonna say
Ursula?
that's- Our job is then to stay within our governance role and ask questions about the process that's being followed and whether or not it applies to all of the safeguards, right? We would have policies in place, we would have procedures that are in place that the district has on how hiring is done. And we can ask those oversight questions of, was there a hiring committee? Was there a search committee? What were all of these oversight steps, and did you complete them?
Again, going back to those questions, which are so important.
And if the answer is no, but I'm hiring this person anyway,
All right, then,
That goes to the evaluation time.
That's the evaluation. Yeah.
hopefully, Chris, hopefully that will never happen. And if it does, call me, and then let's figure it out together. But I hope that'll never happen. All right, so moving on for the sake of time. So we know that the board's primary responsibility is governance, right? So what are our roles as board members? What is our role? Well, it's this. The school board acts as trustees on behalf of the community to provide strong oversight of public education. And in that role, we are responsible for making sure that three things happen. First, that all students in the district are receiving a high-quality education. Secondly, that our taxpayers are getting a good return on their investment. And third, to ensure that our system is operating efficiently, effectively, and ethically. We're all elected by voters, correct? Sometimes we're appointed and then we have to run, but we do eventually have to be elected by voters to be their representatives. So we stand in for our community. They don't want to be here. They want us doing the work, so we're representing them. That's what representational democracy is about. But we're also trustees, and that's why I highlighted that word trustees, because I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what it is and what that means. So a trustee is a person that is entrusted by others to do something. And in our case, as school directors or school board members, we are entrusted by our voters to oversee public education in our district by doing these three things that we see on the slide. Now, this is a little bit different from another type of representative, which is called a delegate. Delegates are also elected or sometimes appointed. So you might be, say, for example, a delegate of an assembly. So an example of this would be our state legislature, where they're elected to be representatives or senators, right? They're also elected by the voters. Hang on one second.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're on a roll. I apologize, but I think I have bingo.
Yes! What are the words? Read them out.
Cheater.
Excuse me.
I haven't. Patrick. Boy, that was an accusation. Did the chair say that?
Yeah.
Stephen did it. Stephen said it. She just wanted Stephen.
A bunch of us had it an hour ago.
The board has to agree that he
All right.
got it, because I haven't been paying attention. I mean, I haven't been tracking. Go ahead.
Oversight,
Oversight?
Yeah.
mission,
Yep.
the free space,
The free space.
the why, and representative.
Oh my God, yes. I didn't get a free space. They're
You get
done.
to pick any of
I was
these
missing
you would
one.
like. Pick one and hang on to the bag for the next winner.
But I think we're getting to that one. What's in there?
Ethiopian
I'm almost there. You got it?
Is anybody else close? Oh, you all got bingo? Well, pass the bag down. No, there's plenty of prizes for everybody. So, should we use the honor system?
Yeah, I trust.
You trust them? Okay. But you took away the joy of yelling, bingo. All right, next one who gets bingo, I do want you to shout it out, and don't be rude about interrupting. It's not rude, it's fun. All right, so how do these two different types of representatives, a delegate and a trustee, behave or act? So a delegate typically advocates for the interests of a specific group or maybe a constituency. And a delegate believes that the voters place them there as a representative to speak for them. So as such, delegates tend to vote the will of the people who elected them and who put them in office. A trustee takes a bit of a broader view. A trustee will balance different perspectives and make decisions based on what is best for the system, both now and in the future. And a trustee believes that they have been entrusted by the voters to do something, and that something is to do what's best for the district. And it puts the district's interests above the interests of any one particular group or constituency. So understanding what our own board orientation, I kind of call it a board orientation, is whether we see ourselves more as delegates or trustees when we're in this room, I think is really important. So ask yourself right now, and I'll give you a minute to think about it. When you're here serving on this board in this room, do you see yourself more as a delegate or as a trustee? And I don't expect anybody to answer it out loud, but just think about it for a minute. Somebody's looking over there.
Bingo.
Bingo. Pass the bag down. We trust Floor, right? Yes. And there's enough for everybody to win. So keep going, don't lose heart. Anybody want to think about, do you have a question or you want to talk about, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I guess my reaction is it sort of depends on the day and on the subject. I think that to some degree, like, I work on seeking out an unspoken point of view or, a marginalized perspective in a subject.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that is, it may be popularly held in the public, but it might not be popularly held on the board. And in cases like that, it feels like I'm standing up and speaking more in the spirit of a delegate than a trustee.
Mm-hmm.
But the reverse is also true.
Mm-hmm. Depends on the day. Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to share how they see themselves most of the time, some of the time, all the time? Elizabeth.
I agree with Daniel. I think it's a tricky one. I also think that it's important for me as a board member to think about how our community views us as a trustee or a delegate, because I think that is also something that, crosses my mind as I move through this role, and is something that I constantly think about, which I think is actually a really good thing, because when you are voted into a position, there is at least a sense of, I am representing something. And in this case, we're representing the district, which makes up, of many different communities. But I do think that it is a fine line. And I think that our community also has differing opinions on what our role is, which makes it really tricky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Yep, go ahead, Zach.
I mean, looking at our district, looking at the fact that we have, both an ethical and a legal obligation to represent all, 10,000 of the people in our district, and those people do not agree on a lot of things, I think I'm not really sure what it would even mean to be a delegate in that context. We're not, when we talk about being, when you talk about sort of the role of a delegate, there's sort of an assumption that there are discrete groups with discrete interests, but none of us are allowed to be representing just, a discrete, a discrete portion of the whole. And so I think, being a trustee works, and I just don't know what being a delegate even means in that context.
Anybody else want to say something?
Yeah, I think
Back to Dan?
the structure makes it difficult. I represent Worcester, but people from the entire district vote for me. So am I representing Worcester at all? You know, the structure says I really am not, except I am. So it's confusing.
What do you others think about
I think we also need to recognize the U.S. Constitution says that you don't just represent Worcester. Yep, yeah, there's a serious equal protection question about equal representation if people don't represent the entire district.
So I think what happens is we're informed by where we live. I mean, I've lived in Berlin for over 30 years. I'm very familiar with things in Berlin, so that obviously shapes my perspective. However, we work and we discuss and we make decisions about all. And so we represent all, but I am shaped by where I live and who my neighbors are. And that just frames up my thinking and my lenses.
Good point. Are we on round two? Elizabeth, did you say something earlier?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking on what you had said, and that is, so if trustees are assigned the way that they are, and it's the structure that we have, where does the community voice come into that? So when you have community members who are expressing things and saying things, where does the community voice come into play in that process as a trustee? Because as a delegate, it's very clear. You know what that looks like. As a trustee, it becomes much more gray and muddied.
Where does the community come in to this when you're a trustee? I mean, think about it now. Think about how is your community participate? How is their voice heard? I know you have ways of doing it. I heard it tonight.
Do you want to go?
Right? Through the public comment? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. Public comment or community engagement opportunities and seeking, our different groups of students that would come, our students on our board. So, and that's where we engage with the community. And I know that it's not always perfect, but trying to come up with times where we are having that community input so that we are informed.
Right.
I see myself as a trustee, and I know that that's not always what we all want, but it is a process of learning, I feel, through the years too. So I feel like when I'm on the trustee mindset, I can have a more balanced approach of how I am making decisions. That doesn't mean that you are dismissing the community or, like that part of delegate that we would have like a little chip on our shoulder because we can't insulate ourselves from that community input. So we want to make sure that there's still input at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. We want to make sure that we're still in conversation with the community, like we are at the grocery store. We are at it's almost impossible to go anywhere and not engage in a conversation, which I love, And so you're informed, but my job is to be trustee for all of our kids, right? For what, sustaining that public education for all of our kids in our district.
Dan, did you want to say something? Because I wanted to say something about the community, but go ahead. I know you've been waiting.
Well, yeah, it just occurred, I was thinking very much along the lines of what Elizabeth said, and I think that, I think there's a parallel. The superintendent is accountable to us as the board, but that doesn't mean that one disagreement is going to precipitate us firing him. And similarly, we as trustees and board members are accountable to the public. The public, informs and can engage with us in real time, but they can't necessarily vote us out of office in real time. And I think there's a weird tension with being a trustee. Like, you are a trustee, I see being a trustee is important because the public doesn't have perfect information to make the decisions we do, and they don't have all the perspectives we do. But also, because of that intrinsic nature of the public lacking that information, they are also going to make an imperfect choice at the ballot box about who's the best board member to represent them or to be their trustee. So it's a weird dilemma.
That is very well said. I liked, yeah, yeah. It's an imperfect system. Did you want to say something, Chris?
Where are you gleaning the terms trustee and delegate from? What's your source material?
My source is that book right in front of you.
This one? Okay.
Yep.
And does it talk about the difference between delegates and trustees based in school systems or other elective?
We read that book.
You know, we read it
made a big
piecemeal. We never had it
impression.
really. Anyway,
No.
we've read a lot of books that
I
we
know.
don't
I know you
apply,
guys are-
actually. So what's the purpose of, I mean, does it talk about the benefits of either system?
Yeah.
Or the downfalls of either system?
So, I mean, we could go down this rabbit hole and just spend the rest of our time talking about this. It does go farther than where we're going tonight. That book would argue that that it's a balanced approach. It's a balanced orientation. I think Elizabeth might have said it, or who said it's depending on the day? Daniel. A little bit. I mean, the more stabilizing position is that of trustee. And that's where we want to be. That's where we strive to be most of the time. But sometimes things necessitate us to be a little bit more like a delegate than a trustee. So it's not really an either or situation, it's a both. And it really depends on the situation and what's happening. So I think I strive to the best of my ability to wear a trustee hat as often as possible. I try to look at the district as a whole, what's best for the whole. And I know that sometimes that's in direct conflict with some of the people that voted me in to office. But again, I feel like I was entrusted by the people that voted me in to do something on their behalf because they don't want to be there doing it. And if they really dislike what I did or what I decided, then they're welcome to run. But I think it's a balanced approach. I also think that question, going back to what Marty said, is interesting. Like, I'm from Worcester, but I was elected by everybody. So am I representing Worcester or am I representing everybody? And I think that when you are a unified district or a union, you guys are a unified union district like we are. I'm from one town, there's another town in my district. I don't just think about my kids, the kids in my town and the families in my town. I'm thinking about everybody in both towns. So I feel like that's where I feel most comfortable when I'm thinking about what's best for the entire system, best for the entire district. And also, as Dan said, sometimes board members will know, we're privy to information that maybe the public doesn't know. And that's tricky. But again, we were asked to do this job. We were voted to do this job. It's our responsibility to do the best that we can. The community is really interesting. You said, Elizabeth, you asked, where does the community come into all this? The community is central to all of this because we as a board, we're that bridge between the district and the community. And like a bridge where you cross both ways, information should be going both ways. So we as board members need to remember, we need to solicit input from the community and get their ideas. I mean, how did the mission get created? with their input. So there are times when that is really important, that we need to be very proactive in getting that input, checking in with them. What are your values? Or have your values changed? We went through a global pandemic. Maybe things look different now, right? So that's important. But the other direction is also important. That is us communicating to the community what we've deemed as necessary and important. So it's like that two-way flow of information, and community engagement is essential, whether you're a trustee or a delegate, I would argue. Yeah, David.
I guess I would say what Flor said I agree with, and that's kind of where I was going and why I didn't start talking, is I think, and like Marty said, you're elected by people from all 5 towns to do the mission. And that very much feels like trustee to me. And I think because all 5 towns vote to elect and all 5 towns, sign petitions, it's pretty clear that you're supposed to be living in the trustee world. And I also feel like trustee puts us all on the same team, whereas delegate sort of sets up an adversarial, potentially situation that really probably doesn't benefit the district as a whole. Because everybody should be thinking about every town's interests.
Yeah. That book, if you want to go back and look at it, they talk about the meeting, what do the meetings look like of a group of delegates versus a group of trustees? And you might use things like a 3-ring circus to describe the meeting of delegates. Things can get kind of dramatic. And it doesn't always instill confidence in the voters who put us there to see the drama and the conflict happen. And actually, the research goes on to show that boards that behave more like delegates than they do trustees tend to have higher board turnover rate and shorter superintendent tenure, because it's just uncomfortable. So at the end of the day, even though some of the community may like the show, I think most people don't want that to happen. They want some stability. Do you want to practice this with a scenario? Do you want to say something, Stephen?
I was just going to offer, too. I think that one of the things that I see from my perspective is when board members are thinking more as a trustee than a delegate, that's when the board tends to have a common voice in its communication to the community. And when they feel more in the delegate role, they tend to express their own opinion to the community more than the board's opinion. And when you said the bridge analogy, I think about sometimes that, and it's difficult because, people do have their own opinions and they want to be able to express those, and they have their own views. And when they see themselves as a trustee, many times they feel more comfortable communicating as a whole than they do when they're thinking of themselves as a delegate.
Yep, good point. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a scenario. Go ahead. Yeah, go, Natasha.
Also bingo.
Bingo.
The bag is back there.
It's right behind.
I'm having a really tough time with how this conversation is going.
Okay.
And I think it's because, one of the reasons I'm on this board is because I want to have a voice for the Black families in this community. And looking around this board, I'm the one who can have an authentic voice for the Black community. And so I am sort of the delegate, right, for the Black community. Does that make me any less of a trustee for the students in our district? I also think of myself as a delegate for the queer community. Does that make me any less of a trustee for the students in this community, right? And I think while I can bring in the perspective of the town that I live in, ultimately, I am making decisions as a trustee. But if we're not allowed to talk from different perspectives, then how can we make any kind of informed decisions as trustees for our entire district? And I just feel like we can get bogged down in somebody is sharing their perspective and their opinion, and that automatically means you are speaking only for these people and you are unable to think about the district as a whole, as opposed to, thank you for bringing in this other perspective that allows us to make a broader informed decision so we can do what's best for our students. And I think that that's something that we really struggle with as a board, is making that distinction between sharing an opinion in order to make an informed decision and that opinion being representative of being a delegate.
Very interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I guess my thinking on that is that it's your responsibility as a trustee to make sure everyone is represented and taken care of. And if that perspective isn't brought up, it's your responsibility to bring it up. And so I don't know if that, like, for me, that's how I see it. I guess it's everyone's responsibility to bring anything to the attention of the board that's bears on a decision. And then it's the responsibility of each member to vote.
To act as a trustee with that.
That.
Yes, which I agree with. I just think that we start arguing semantics.
And at the end of the day, I think,
Derailed.
oh, I changed the slide already, but at the end of the day, this is really a question of semantics, trustee, delegate. And so I don't want to like get too bogged down in it. I just wanted you to be aware of the different types of representatives and the or orientations that we as board members have. Yeah, and I think this was a very good conversation that I just heard. Yeah, one more thing, Daniel?
Yeah, at the risk of sending us down a rabbit hole, I just wanted to present a thought experiment that instead of a 15-person board representing 5 towns, imagine a scenario in which Washington Central were represented by 3 at-large individuals, and all 5 towns voted, and they all happened to be 42-year-old white men from Calais. And I think this conversation would be very different. And I think there's a weird, maybe perversion's not the right word, but a weird reality when you have a board this big, that there's this erroneous perception that every perspective is represented on this board. Not the case, but I think that there's a lot of noise because there are 15 voices, and it makes it harder to suss out. And I'm not suggesting that this district be represented by 3 42-year-old white men from Calais, but those 42-year-old white men from Calais better damn well do their homework about what all the perspectives in the district are in that scenario. And I think, I think that in some ways the accountability is clearer, and the mandate that they have to represent everyone is more clear.
I have so much more I'd love to say on this, but I kind of feel like we got to move on. But this was a really good discussion. Diane, tell me honestly, how much time do we have left? We got started.
You did not get started until 6:30-ish.
Okay, so we have 40
till
minutes?
8:30-ish.
Maybe we'll do this scenario as a group. That would save us a little bit of time. I do want to do this scenario, but we also have to get on to oversight and decision-making. Oops. Sure.
Did you just make this one up?
I did. Actually, I got it from a book.
Did you?
I really did. I mean, I think it goes to show you how common of a problem this is, a challenge. So a school board is aware that the superintendent, and I literally wrote it word for word from my board member handbook, believe it or not. So who makes the unpopular choices? A school board is aware that the superintendent is about to reduce the number of preschool hours that will be offered in the district. It knows that some parents will be unhappy with this decision. What action, if any, should the board with a trustee orientation take? want to think about it and then start. Some people think slower than others. I mean, I'm one of those, so I just want to give everybody a chance to think. And then I'll call on Ursula. Julia, are you still with us? Yeah, she's with us. I sometimes don't look up at her, so you let me know if she wants to say something. Yeah.
Sometimes I think she just has to turn camera off because internet goes a little.
It's a little fuzzy. Okay. All right. Anybody want to chime in on this scenario? Anybody want to say what they think if any action by the board is needed? Ursula.
I think it's the board's responsibility to ask questions in regards to how does this meet our goals? Why was this decision made and how? The decision was made, who was involved, and how does it move us forward in our goals or what we want for our students? Or how does it help the health of the district as a whole? That's what we would have to ask.
Yep. David.
All that for sure, and I think also then the board's responsibility is to ensure that the communication is really clear so that other people can understand why and how that decision was reached, and even though people will be unhappy, they at least understand it was fact-based and mission-driven.
In anticipation of the public outcry. Yeah. Yep. Yep. There's some damage control or prevention you can do ahead of time. Yep. Any other ideas or thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
I think it's also important for the board to look at what its role was in creating the circumstances that got themselves there. You know, did it set the wrong guidance? Did it set the wrong parameters? Did it screw up with the budget that it had put forward? You know, sort of what is driving this? To understand, you know, is it something that it should have, you know, that it should recognize for next time, for accountability for the board to understand the impact of those decisions. Potentially see, is there a real board level thing to say, oh, we've created a situation that we didn't mean to create. You know, is there a way that we work with the superintendent to change that? You know, if we ended up in a situation where we'd created a situation that we didn't intend.
I think the board could also see about reviewing the policies that were used to make this decision, and then if edits need to be made to those or new policies need to be made, so that there's cover for unpopular decisions. There's the longer term thinking potentially that could go into buttress the decision that was made.
Do you want me to read? Go ahead.
I think the board would want to explore the equity, and we use the word equity a lot, often wrong, I think, because we don't describe what equity means, and it doesn't mean the same thing in every situation. But what the word equity and the fairness of the decision is, particularly when there is a fraught political climate as well, because there's a political climate that can apply here as well.
Absolutely. Do you want me to read what the book said as a response? So, board members should recognize that the superintendent, while required to advise the board of material changes, is empowered to make decisions about programs used to achieve the district's goals and mission. This is the how. Remember the how we talked about? The board is obligated to protect the superintendent from criticism regarding decisions that are aligned with the district's goals and mission and relevant board policies, no matter how unpopular the decisions may be. Recognizing that this decision may cause a public outcry, the board may ask for more information to learn about the process for making the decision and an explanation of how this programmatic change will address specific needs. This improved understanding will allow the board to converse intelligently with the public to support the actions of the administration. And we're going to get to information in a little bit. So that's, I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, and I wanted to read that aloud because I think I heard everything that I just read aloud, given from, provided by you all. A lot of that Ursula said, yeah, and what you just said as well, yep.
But that answer seems a little backward to me because
Is it?
the factual basis, the reasoning for making the decision should be part of the decision presentation rather than backfilling later. And that's where we pride ourselves on community involvement and community input. And those things, I think, should be out in front of explaining the decision rather than protecting the decision that's already been made. So it's just a little bit different ordering
of
than
it, yep.
you discussed.
Yep. I can see that. All right, let's move on to oversight. So same slide about the role of the school board, but this time I want to dig in a little bit on the word oversight. So board members really should try to understand and then practice this balance between oversight and management. This concept is very basic. It's covered in most board governance 101 classes. That's what we talk a lot about with new board members, but this primary responsibility of being one of oversight. Most board members get it, like it's kind of obvious. But as with so many things in board governance, the devil is very much in the detail. These issues are never simple. There's lots of nuances, right? So one of the things that we have to think about and recognize is that oversight may mean different things to different board members. And board members may have different views about what oversight is. So for example, one board member might believe that a board's oversight really entails two oversight activities, hiring a superintendent and passing some policies, done. Another member might think it's that and that it requires a little bit more than that. So oversight might also require setting of measurable goals, in the case student outcome, right, related goals, and then measuring progress towards those goals through, say, test scores. Another board member may think it's all of that, those two things, plus more. A third board member might believe that it's also important that that they ask questions, and this gets back to what I heard Ursula say during the scenario, that it's important for the board to be able to ask questions of the superintendent about the process, how something was decided, how something is expected to help achieve a certain goal. How is, in our example, how will these test scores be raised? Or what is the district doing to ensure that scores increase? So think about it. Think about it again as you as a person, as an individual board member. When you look at these levels of oversight, where do you feel you see yourself? And where do you want to be as a board? I kind of like number one and be done with it, right? I wouldn't be a very good board member, though. It would be the easy one.
Are you assuming that number 3 incorporates 2 and 1?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. And the point of putting these up here is that board members come to a board table with different views already. So they may already say oversight. I know what oversight means. It means we have to hire a superintendent and have some policies and we're done. Others may think, well, no, there's a little bit more. There's, we have to set some goals and measure those goals and measure progress towards those. And yes, we should be monitoring that. And the third one may say, well, it's actually a little bit more than that. It's actually when things change, like we talked about in that other scenario, we as a board really, as part of our oversight, need to ask some questions. How did you come to this decision? How do you see, Superintendent, this change is going to benefit the whole district? Yeah, comments, questions?
I think three, but also like where's the budget in there? Is the budget number 4? Then number 4.
Yep. We'll get to budget too, I promise. Yep.
I feel like this model doesn't work real well for us. I think we do 1 and 3 and we struggle with 2. And so I think that's something for us to reflect on and sort of where we are and what order we're doing things.
So you're struggling with the oversight of helping to set measurable student outcome goals and using, test scores and other measures. Test scores always seem to be the popular one to monitor progress. That's where the board is struggling. A lot of boards do struggle with that.
I think we look at it. I don't think we don't have real goals of like what it should. We monitor what it is. I think we don't have a strong sense of what it should be. And so I think that we then skip over that and get into a lot, inquiry engagement on a lot of different things without having gone through like what does it should be before we start asking those questions.
Yeah. Yep.
I was going to agree with Zach. We definitely measure, and all of us on this board should understand that, especially when it comes to student outcomes, we have not moved the needle at all.
Okay.
And so it's possibly on goal setting. We have goals within the district in different places. But it's figuring out how do we move. And
When
make
you say
progress.
goals, Ursula, are you talking about your SIP goals?
We have
mostly?
SIP goals, we have district strategic improvement goals. Yeah, and so our SIP goals have specific, like, I'm not gonna know it off the top of my head because it's not in front of me, but we have a percentage of increase in math and reading achievement.
Right.
And each school has a SIP
Yep.
plan and the district has one. And it all gets monitored,
Okay.
but
You're offering a nice segue to the next slide.
you're welcome.
So part of our oversight responsibility, especially with number 2, is what I call the big governance questions. On this slide, you'll see 5 different questions that a board should be posing or asking a superintendent. How are our students doing? How do we know how our students are doing? What is our district doing to improve how our students are doing? I always feel like those are the big 3, and then those others are kind of bonuses. What will success look like, and how will we know whether we are making progress? When I receive a presentation, I'm always keeping those, especially the top 3 questions in my head. And if I can't leave that board meeting being able to say how our students are doing, then I feel like something went wrong. And often I can't answer that question. It's not easy. But these are questions, governance questions. These are important questions that boards should be asking frequently of the superintendent. And I would argue that when they ask these questions, this is very much part of our oversight responsibility. This is not micromanaging or overstepping, that this is important. We exist as a system, as a district for our students, and we want to see them do well. So these are really fundamental questions. Yeah, Flora.
I think that sometimes what is hard is to tie all the dots together. We don't always do a good job as a board, because we haven't done that in a while. We've been sort of bogged down a little bit in the past 3 years from doing how best to serve all our students. I'm not even going to mention the word. But we had talked over the past, I think that we do have conversation, at least in our Ed Quality Committee and our Finance Committee, and, like how our students are doing, and, what this stretch growth of is, how do we best, even for setting our parameters for budget, we say, like, please make sure that we are sustaining our multi-layer system of supports, the coaching, the professional development. It's just, what is hard sometimes, and we need, is just to keep tabs of all those balls in the air and really understand how one affects the other one. And so I just wanted to say that, because and it's hard also every year, especially this year, we have pretty much a very brand new board. So this is just so timely. To me, what we're doing today is just all learning and making sure that we all understand through this year how our students are doing and are able to communicate that with our communities.
Yeah, and that's important too, is that communicating it to the communities. Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments before we move on? So in addition to that oversight responsibility, those big governance questions, boards sometimes may need to or wish to go a little bit deeper with their oversight. And so I put this term up here, informed oversight. This comes again from a chapter in that book that's about assessing individual board members. And it's basically a chapter that talks about the stabilizing characteristics of a school board member. And one of those characteristics is hyper-role clarity and setting boundaries. So in the case of oversight, it's really understanding that difference. And it's not always clear where oversight ends and micromanagement or maybe overstepping begins. But boards need to know and need to understand that in order to do good oversight, you need knowledge. And sometimes that knowledge needs more information, right? So that's how we get to this term informed oversight. So it's basically understanding in a general sense what the problems or the issues are, and then expecting an explanation of how a new program or approach or an initiative or maybe a change to a current program will address a specific need. Again, remember we talked about how important asking questions is. Asking questions of how a new approach or a new program or a change to an existing program will address specific needs. That's totally fair game for a board, and that's part of this informed oversight. And why is this important? Why is informed oversight important? Well, I'd say for two very important reasons. And one is that it helps your board to make informed decisions. We don't want to be in the dark when we're asked to make a big decision about, say, a new curriculum or the budget. We need information, right? It helps us make a better quality decision. But it also is important because it enables us to effectively communicate with the community about why these changes were made or why this program was approved. And so I would say that practicing informed oversight is not only permitted, but it's actually quite essential for a board to do this. So thinking about what informed oversight is and that an important part of it is asking questions, think about what types of questions might help you get at this informed oversight. How could it help you? For example, say the superintendent comes and says, we want to have a new curriculum for reading, for literacy, for grades 1 through 3. This is it. And if you wanted to practice informed oversight, what kind of questions would you think about asking? I saw your hand first, Chris, and then Patrick's.
You could ask, what happened to the old curriculum and why it's not working and how this would be different
Yeah,
and what your expectations are in terms of improvement.
yeah. Yeah, Patrick? Taken. Yeah,
What's
Marty.
the track record of the new program?
yeah. Research, where did you come up with this curriculum? Do you think it's great because the vendor who's selling it says it's great? I mean, how did you come to this decision that this is the curriculum? That's a very fair question. And part of the informed oversight. Any other questions you can think of related to curriculum? If he says, we're going to be spending $300,000 on this curriculum, and that's a chunk of change, you might want to know a little bit more. I saw you, Elizabeth, and then I saw Dan.
What's the intended student outcome of making this change? And then how will we know that that outcome has happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, what's the current achievement gap? And I think, how does this need compare to other unmet needs in the district?
Yeah, based on what we know, based on what we've seen in our results or recent test scores, for example, we've noticed that this group of students is really struggling. Is this curriculum going to help fix that? Something else, Ursula?
You should probably also ask the time frame in which they expect to see results or at least a change in student outcomes.
What's the plan for professional development? Do we have money for that? Yeah. So again, this isn't, it's not clear, because maybe Stephen's starting to get a little nervous, you might be stepping into my management lane, folks. No, he's shaking his head no. But those are good questions. You guys are getting information, you're asking for information to increase your knowledge so you can make an informed decision, right? That's what this is about. You're not questioning his ability to choose the right curriculum or his staff. You're literally asking so you can make an informed decision, and then you're able to articulate it to those that are like, oh my gosh, we're changing curriculums again? I feel like we just did that, so you can go out and really talk about why this is important. Marty?
I don't think all of us are well-versed in the ins and outs of, say, reading or math.
Yeah.
So my question would be asking for education. Can you point me to the research and the various types of programs that are out there and what people are saying about this versus that one, what's been working, give me some where I can go to get myself educated so I understand what it is that you're asking of me.
And how would you feel about that, Stephen, if Marty sent you an email or called you up and asked you that?
If he sent a message to me and the board chair, I would say that entirely appropriate questions. And I was just thinking that this almost feels like the bid process, like when we go through in finance and we say, here's our 3 bids, or here's the 4 things that we looked at, and here's the pros and cons of each of those. I think that gets at, some of those questions of how did we choose this? Why did we choose this? And what were the criteria that were used for that? And I think that for me, I think those are the good discussions to have as a board. Like, what are the criteria that we have for selecting curriculum, right? Is it piloted? Is it research-based? All of those kinds of things, because if we have those criteria, we just apply that to whatever decision we're making around curriculum, and then the board doesn't have to ask, right? I mean, that's
right.
If an individual member is asking, to me, that means that we really haven't set clear criteria. I mean, there could be instances where it's just, hey, I just didn't get this piece, but overall, if as a board we've set that criteria, then the individual questions should be minimized. I mean, they'll still be there, but they'll be minimized.
Yeah. Often you can tell how well a presentation went or your explanation went by the questions that are asked, right? So hopefully a lot of these questions that you just came up with, you won't have to ask. They'll already be included in the presentation from admin about this curriculum. Yeah.
I was just going to go back to that passage you read to us about sort of, what's the word, sort of asking the questions and affirming and supporting the administration through a decision. And Chris's comment to that was that it felt like a backfilling of information.
Yeah.
And something didn't sit right with me. And I think what it is it's the public, and we also might not know everything that went into the decision initially. And it's, if it's not an intuitive decision to us, it probably isn't an intuitive decision to the public. And so that's when that conversation happens. And then I think Zach mentioned the question of like what went wrong that we arrived at this point, and maybe it's the policy. There wasn't a clear policy. There weren't clear criteria.
Right.
So even though it was intuitive to the administration, it wasn't necessarily based in our own policy.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's good. Good input. Flor?
Yeah, I had to say that we've been doing a lot of presentations nationally, and because this is a theme that happens not just in Vermont, but across, and there's certain guidelines also that our superintendent and our curriculum director and everybody have to follow from the Agency of Education too. It's not just like, it's just not whatever we want them to do, but questions that, as we were presenting this to nationally, we were suggesting to board members that they ask, are they evidence-based? You know, like what you were saying about, I just have the presentation in front of me. Is there teacher training? Can it be updated regularly? Can we update it? Like, there's a lot of questions that we can ask just because we know that the public would ask us questions. So what is the 7th grade version of what we should be sharing again with our communities so that we all understand it? And if it's going to be a curriculum, it's like, can we have a community presentation so that everybody understands what's going to be the benefit for our communities and how our student outcomes are going to, you know, increase, or how we are intending to use this
To improve our student outcomes.
to improve our student outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So it's a learning of all together. Not necessarily we need to do all the learning before the community, but ask the right questions and then make sure that everybody understands.
Yeah, and in doing so, and doing that, having that discussion, that conversation in public, since your meetings are public, then that information is being shared with the public, whether they're there live, or watching a recording. So yeah, it kind of fits two purposes: your understanding and improving the understanding of the community as well. All right, one more topic, and then we are through the training. Does everybody have bingo so far? Anybody don't? Because I can try to use those words. So,
Board norms, behavior,
Norms.
open meeting law.
oh, shoot, okay.
Well,
Feel free.
So there you go. Oh, wait, now I've said it, right? Does that count?
No, that does not count. Board norms, open meeting law, and?
I only need, like, either, you could do, if you can fit in open meeting law, that'll give me a bingo.
Those are oars, right? Those are oars.
Yeah, it was,
Ooh,
I think
that's-
behavior and board norms or open meeting law.
Communication, we have
Oh,
said
can you-
communication many times.
Yeah.
Okay, bingo.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Phew.
I can't find things on my board, that's all.
I wasn't sure if I could work in open meeting law in the last section.
Natasha's got
All right. Natasha, yeah, go ahead.
I just have a comment before we move on.
Sure.
And I was just sitting here trying to think how to frame this. I really appreciate that last slide because I know when we get into budget conversations and questions are asked, let me not use quantitative words. There are times when the response to questions is, you need to trust our administration. And so for me, it was really important that we spent as much time on this as we did, because I think it's also really important for our leadership to hear that if we're asking questions, it's not that we don't trust them, it's that we're really trying to understand the process and the thinking that went behind the decisions. So if we're gonna back it, we feel 100% backing in. So I just want to put that in the room and just say thank you for really putting some stress on that, because I think that that's something that we have struggled with in the past, this idea that if we ask questions, it's because we don't trust our administration to do their jobs, which is not the case.
Very nicely said. All right. Thankfully, not all decisions are board decisions, right? Many of them are not. And we also know that as boards, we receive a lot of information. So the key really is knowing what to do with that information. And in order to do that, we need to know what type of information it is that we're receiving, or in some cases, we may be requesting. So there are 3 different types of information that boards can ask for or receive. They're right there. So let's look at them one by one. Decision information includes information for the board that they need to make informed decisions, such as policy adoption, budget adoption. This is, and I was about to say, and this is really important during budget season, right? The information's related to a decision that is appropriate for a board to make, so a board level decision we're talking about. And therefore, it focuses the board's attention very much on the future. So it's a lot of information is kind of future oriented. That's decision information. Monitoring information is a little bit different. It's a little bit more retrospective, looking in the past. Monitoring information includes information which allows us as board members to make a judgment about something such as, well, we said policy, so maybe I'll say policy compliance. How well are we complying with this policy? Perhaps it's making a judgment about how is the progress going in terms of meeting our goals or moving our district closer to its mission. Maybe it has something to do with financial oversight. So monitoring is a little bit backwards facing. We need information to help us make a judgment, form an assessment of how things are going. And then the third type of information is kind of for every other type of information. It's a catch-all. This is called incidental information. So if information isn't helping enable a board to make a decision and it's not helping you to monitor something, then chances are it falls in this third category of incidental information. It tends to focus more on the immediate past or maybe something that's coming up in the near future. And while you may say, well, how much incidental information do we really need? It really depends on you as a board. How much do you want? It is helpful information to have for several reasons. It allows you to feel connected to the organization, right? I mean, who doesn't love when, I don't know what your student reps do, but I imagine that they present information about what's going on in the schools. I mean, we feel connected to these students through our student reps or whenever we get a report about what's happening in the schools. It also allows the board to be not surprised. So if there's something coming up in the media, then it's important that we are told that there's going to be a story hitting about something. It could have something to do with legal issues. It could have something to do with events. This is information that's not essential to governing, however. It's incidental, but it's still important that we have it. But it's also important that we don't consume a lot of our time on it. So some boards, for example, will use the agenda as a tool to help differentiate between they'll organize the agenda according to what kind of information they're receiving. So I know in our case, we have our incidental information is always kept in an agenda item called the superintendent's report. I think we even call it the incidental report. And in that incidental report, there'll be things like teacher won, the best teacher, this teacher won the best, was recognized at the state The basketball team won the state championship. You know, what else is, I mean, I can't even remember, like, it's basically stuff to help us as a board feel connected to the organization. So I don't want it to sound like it's lesser than these other two. It's important. It's not governing information, so we don't want to spend a lot of our precious board time and our meetings on that stuff. A lot of it we can read about or have a conversation with Stephen about. So, any questions about those types of information? Because before we wrap up, I would love to do one more exercise. Yeah.
I think that the examples that you were giving for incidental information, I think that that's sort of how we see the mission statement in action in some ways. Like it's not what's happening in the classroom, the examples you gave anyway, but it's how the kids are doing, not how their test scores are,
right,
but how are the kids doing in sports or in the drama department or like whatever else is happening in school or the other superlatives kids are getting. Like it's ways that we can see the mission statement in action. So I think that is still a important part.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important, very important. Couple examples of decision, throw them out there. What are a couple examples of decision-making information that you might get from Stephen or that you might ask for to help you make a decision? Just give us some examples. Elizabeth.
Financial decisions to guide the budget.
Yep, so information about the budget.
Finances or budget, yeah.
Yeah, we need data, we need numbers, definitely. Yep. Others. Think about when you're right before a decision you have to take, like what kind of information do you expect to get?
We get the documents for hiring.
Yep. Yep. We talked about curriculum, right? Approval. We need information about the curriculum. We already covered that pretty exhaustively. Yeah.
I won't beat the curriculum horse because that's my place to
I'm
sit.
sorry.
But I was going to steal, Stephen brought up our finance reports, right? And like they bring us how many bidders we had, what the bids were.
Yep.
And the details of what that contract would be.
Yep. Do you have to approve the expenditure of reserve funds?
Yes.
So that is definitely important information you need to get. Some examples of monitoring information. What would that look like? I know it depends on what you're monitoring. You could be monitoring student performance. You could be monitoring the expenditure of the budget.
The quality report.
Yep.
Anticipated student population for the next year.
Mm-hmm. Anticipated student population for the coming year. Think about that one. That's a little forward-looking, so that may be more relevant to making a decision.
Yeah.
Think about monitoring.
Okay.
So it's more backward-looking. Great. Yeah.
Graduation rates,
I was
growth
thinking-
of our students in, you know, how the students are doing, monitoring whether it's math or literacy before we make that decision on curriculum, for example, since we were talking about that.
Yeah. I always think of this as like data, really heavy in data, like chronic absenteeism rates, you know, graduation rates. But then when I think about student outcomes, then I'm thinking about test scores and other ways we measure our student progress. But also, I think about climate survey data, you know, like that's an important monitoring, a piece of information that we need for monitoring. Superintendent performance, that's a huge one, and it's our responsibility to monitor. Throw out a couple examples of incidental, we'll call it a day. What's a good example of incidental information to help you feel connected to your school, to your district?
Yeah.
Principals.
Yeah.
Our
Principal
student
reports, you
report.
get those?
We do have a student report.
And you have a student report? There you go. Right. You're not really monitoring it, you're not really expected to take action on it, but it is still important and relevant information. Good. You guys get it. All right. So here's the final exercise. Think of a recent question that you have asked the superintendent. Hopefully you've asked the question. And it could be here in the boardroom, it could be, as a board, or maybe it was an email. When you asked that question, would you say that you were looking for information to help you make a decision, an informed decision? Was it to help you monitor something, or was it to help fulfill your curiosity? And all three. And was the information that you were seeking to help increase your knowledge so that you could practice informed oversight? So that kind of goes more towards the monitoring. But I wanted to throw in informed oversight. And did it help you stay in compliance with open meeting law?
That was
the best I could do. I couldn't think of any other way. No. Think of an example. Any question that you guys have posed to Stephen in a recent board meeting or outside of a board meeting.
I asked Stephen if he knew of a certain educational theorist, and it sort of fit into making informed decisions, wondering whether that was some of the information that went into the decisions, understanding that point of view.
I know this group is good at asking questions, so I know you've been asking a lot of questions. Do you want to give any examples of questions you've received?
I can pull up my emails.
Yeah.
I can share one question that wouldn't be related to all of the other ones and I think it's okay to stay. I asked, we were working on our policy committee. He sent a document to all of us, and I just asked him a question. It said, hey, Stephen, maybe we don't want to do the document like that, just in case that it might be in conflict with our open meeting law. And Stephen immediately said, oh, yeah, I think that's okay to get it. And we looked at it just as view, and we discussed it today in the meeting. It was just a question, right? And it was just, so as an example, so it was to help like you were saying, ask the question that would help
your committee,
yes, our board as a whole.
Yep. Yeah, Elizabeth.
I don't have a specific question, even though I do ask questions. I'll openly say that. I do think that in a lot of ways, every question that's asked hits all three to some degree. I don't have time to ask questions that aren't related to making informed decisions. I just don't. I don't think anybody else does. And I think that we all come from differing perspectives of experiences and backgrounds and, just a lot of different viewpoints. And so I think, of course, there's always going to be curiosity because that's why you ask the question. But I think as a board member, and this is what I say all the time to people who ask me, like, why are you on the board? And what do you, for me, it's I have to know that I'm making an informed decision. And so the questions that I ask, even though sometimes they're not seen as seeking information to make an informed decision, are 99.9% based on informed decision. I would say that point one, there's definitely curiosity for certain things, but I think that one of the things that we run into a lot with questions on our board, and I'm going to speak for myself, is if a question is asked, there then becomes assumptions of a perspective or a belief or a value or a held, whatever it might be. And I think that when it really comes down to it, for me, I'm part of a board because I'm an information seeker. And part of the reason, or the big reason I seek information, is to know that I can say, this is the why, right? So that I can support administrators and our superintendent and the rest of our board. It's really important to me.
That's very nicely said. I know you're tired, and I know you still have public comments, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. Final questions, comments before we wrap this up? No?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great appreciation. Thank you, Debbie.
Aw, thanks. I appreciate all of you. I know how hard this job is. But we do it because we know it's important. And what you do does make a difference. So thank you for doing it. I really appreciate it. Please email me if you have any questions. Call me anytime. If you have new board members that didn't sign up for the New Member Academy that starts tomorrow night, a little encouragement is welcomed. And it will be recorded. So if people can't attend live, they can always watch the recording later. It's just important that they register so they get that information, that recording, okay?
Will we get copies of these slides?
I'd be happy to share them. Yep, I'd be happy to share them. Anything else you want?
And it's for all board members too. You don't have to be new to go to the academy.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Today, the numbers jumped up and I looked and a whole board had registered today. And some of these board members have been board members for a long time. Why are you laughing? It wasn't this board.
Because I registered.
Huh? You didn't sign up. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think it benefits veteran board members in that it helps us. You'll take something away for sure, and it helps you remember what it's like to be a new board member, and that's important as well. So that sign-up sheet, I want to grab that before I go.
I think it's down the other end.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Marty. Thank you very much.
One of the additional things that had been on there was also about board goals. If you reference our work plan, it does have at the top our focus areas. There was also work based upon our self-evaluation. Flora had shared with me, the ones that she had talked about. What I would suggest to us as a board, I'll read those out, but I would suggest that this does become that work of when we can spend greater time to really dive into that and compare it, and also looking at those focus areas of what we have. What Flor had shared at the last meeting and then shared with me was possible priorities or goals are to strengthen our communication norms and board culture, to clarify and enforce governance versus operational roles, to rebuild trust and alignment with our superintendent and leadership team, increase focus on data-driven decision-making tied to strategic goals. These were the trends that she had noticed from the self-evaluation that we had done, and so provide the opportunity for us to dig into that focus as well as the other ones. So that just as a follow-up, that will be part of what we do as we work more diligently. Oh, so yes, and why don't we take a 5-minute bathroom break? So 8:42, please be back. I will start us right back very quickly talking about VSBA resolutions. The next part of our agenda is the VSBA resolutions. There was information shared in there. I know that there was an interest to explore having a resolution about early college, and wondering if there are other resolutions that people on our board have been considering. One of the next steps that would happen from here is identifying if there are those who would be interested in being in a board authorized subcommittee to explore and create a resolution that would come to the board for consideration in our first June meeting. So are there other thoughts about resolutions? And it's okay, so say you don't have a thought yet about a resolution, but you are interested in being in the group, that subcommittee. Certainly you are not limited to only creating a resolution to propose to this board about early college. It could be anything that you all discuss. Zach.
I'd be interested in working specifically on the early college issue.
And just a reminder that it would need to be passed at our next meeting.
Yes.
Right, because it's submitted, or at the first meeting in June. I
Yes,
guess,
which
the
is
first
what I-
meeting
yeah.
in June, because it has to be done by June 15.
5 p.m.
Yeah. Yes, that was as the first meeting in June is what I had said that they would need to be completed by because of that June 15th deadline. Other fun fact, that's my birthday, should anyone care to know, but anyway.
Diane. Hey, Diane. Can we get back to board business?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
All right, so.
I'm just heckling. No, I was curious if there's like VSBA support to like, in terms of framing what's germane, what's not germane. Like, I don't know about it. I think I don't want to overstep our level of knowledge about things, and I've already thought a little bit about like how we might frame a resolution. But I was just curious if there was.
And you mean beyond was in here? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we have that model resolution as part of the packet. As far as creating a resolution, it would have to come from us. Once it goes to the resolution committee and they're reviewing it, if they have some suggestions of how to change it, it would come back to us but before that, we don't want to get involved in the micromanaging of it. So that's why there's a proposed template. Of course, they're all open to questions. If there's specific questions, you can always call, and Sandra would be great to chat with, or Mark, if you have a specific question.
Are there any other people who would be interested in being on this subcommittee? So Daniel and Zach. Marty. Yes, go ahead, Natasha.
Microphone. Thank you.
Do resolutions have to be submitted by the board, or can they be submitted by individual board members?
It has to be submitted by the board. Yeah, it has to be agreed and supported by the board. It's not individual board members.
But any board member could
Bring it over
a
to us
resolution to
and
the board for
to approve.
consideration
Yeah.
and adoption.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
I work in other democratic bodies, and individuals can bring things forward.
Okay.
It doesn't have to come forward from multiple people. That's why I just wanted to clarify.
Any other potential volunteers to be on it? So then I would ask for a motion to create a resolution.
Time-out question before we do that. Does it actually, if it's just two of us, does it actually have to be a formal subcommittee?
Marty is also.
I'm already, sorry, three? Because the three getting.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It could be an advisory committee that's going to get together, meet, talk.
I think once you say the word subcommittee, you get into, warned meetings, minutes, et cetera, et cetera.
Theoretically, advisory committees would not need to be.
So we can change it so then somebody to make a motion for an advisory committee to consider resolutions, formations, to be presented to the board at the first June meeting.
I would move that, naming Marty, Zach, and Daniel as committee members, with others to join if they wish.
Is there a second? Ursula seconds. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of the advisory committee, say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. The next part is the personnel, and which is,
So you did get updated personnel in your packet. I think that was today, right? Yeah, today.
Yeah. I move that we hire Elisha Hawks as the new U32 interim principal, Ilana Williams as 1 FTE classroom teacher at U32 for science, Sarah Berry, 1 FTE classroom teacher, music at Calais and East Montpelier, and Jenna Hallstrom, 1 FTE SLP for Washington Central Unified Union School District.
is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Yes.
Question about the music teacher position for Calais and EMES. Was that originally supposed to be a .6, or was that? Was that always a 1?
Yeah, originally a .6, but we're able to hire it as a full-time right now, and it'll help support a couple of our programs a little bit more fully at this point. Stays within the budget that we originally approved.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's so ordered.
Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, Ursula.
I move that we accept the resignations of Sarah Ainsworth, RISE Coordinator U32, Sarah Cousins, SLP, WCUUSD, Kirsten Keese, School Counselor U32, Liza Semler, Work-Based Learning Coordinator, and William Potterzay, Special Educator Teacher at WCUUSD.
Second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Are these positions that we're planning on filling after these resignations are approved? Or are these all positions that are going to go away?
So some of these positions may not be filled. We're evaluating the overall structure right now. So we're using attrition as a way of reducing our workforce, but we will make sure that we cover these duties if we choose not to have these, and the board will be informed should we not fill all of these positions.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Just gratitude for the people leaving.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It moves.
Zach.
So before, I should have noticed this before, when we had changes to the agenda. I would ask that we do public comments before our executive sessions, just so that the public can then they're welcome to stay for whatever, but, so.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Quick question, Diane.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, can that apply to reflections as well?
Pardon me?
Can that apply to
Oh,
reflections
for
as well?
reflections as well, yes.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we will, or do you want me to do it in the order that it's printed? Daniel, were you thinking reflections and then?
I don't care.
Okay. So why don't we do public comments? Again, I would ask for raised hands of those online and in person that would like to make comments so that I can plan time accordingly. Are there any online raised hands? Any in? Okay, I see 3, 4. Okay.
Do not see any online.
So I would say that we could extend to 3 minutes.
Public comment, is this turned on? Sounds like it is. This is public comment while I'm presenting a petition to Superintendent Jellinger Pate and to the Washington Central Unified School District School Board. I'm Cynthia Gardner-Morse. As many of you know, I grew up here in Calais. I attended Calais schools, and I live in the 1850s farmhouse built by my Morse ancestors. Calais is my community. I am presenting a petition with signatures from 190 residents of the town of Calais, Vermont. Please allow Calais children to attend Calais school, be they pre-K or whatever grade they're in. Of the signatures that we have, 107 were online, 70 were gathered from all over Calais, 10 were signed up at Maple Corner Store, and 3 at East Calais Store, and somehow I left out Adamant, but there were some at Adamant too. All 190 are Calais residents, and the online petition has comments that I found very interesting. So if you read this later, I hope you'll look at the comments. As you consider this, I think new information has come in. We've had voter input since the budget was organized, and the pre-K numbers have changed and continue to change. I find it a little surprising they keep rising so much, but they are. As you consider this decision, I would like you to think about equity. about marginalized populations who live far from their schools, about IEP students who would benefit from having early school experiences, about how things are for free and reduced hot lunch students and their families to be involved in their school. Think about graduation rates, which we know start with experiences that start very early in the school years. We'd like to get our pre-K as fully involved with the school as we can. We are asking that given the present numbers of potentially enrolled pre-K and kindergarten children, that the children who live in Calais or who wish to attend Calais School for any reason be allowed to attend our school. We ask that the overwhelming vote of the residents of Calais taken last February in favor of keeping our school open, that vote be honored, whatever the numbers. While I understand that this has become an emotional issue, I hope that common sense, research, and the best interests of 3-, 4-, and 5-year-old people will be prioritized over the convenience of the school staff. When I met with Superintendent Dillinger-Pate in April, ways to fund keeping Calais children in Calais School were discussed. It sounds as if money exists in an emergency fund that could be used for this purpose. In the grand scheme of a budget of millions of dollars, the costs are small. Inconvenience to adult staff was presented as one barrier, but I ask us to weigh that against the inconvenience for people who are 3, 4, or 5 years old and their families. I ask you to consider, what about the barrier of climbing aboard a huge bus twice in the morning's commute for some children for a longer ride to attend a bigger school that is less convenient for families with small children? Should the convenience of adult staff be prioritized over the early school experiences of young children and their families? I'm making the assumption that the schools will offer basically the same programs to their students, but I'm hearing from community members who have visited East Montpelier that that's not necessarily the case. So please don't move 20% of our school population. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. And I did see that, Dell, you have your hand up. Why don't we go to Dell?
Thank you. I'm Dell Waterhouse. I live in Worcester, which is the smallest town in our district, population-wise, with fewer than 1,000 total residents. We're also the only one of our 5 towns with a town center that includes our elementary school. And in many ways, our school really feels like an essential part of the heart of our town. This feeling about our school was reflected clearly when our residents voted by 212 to 114 to keep Doty open. And in spite of the lead up to that vote feeling very intense and unfortunately quite contentious at times, our community has come together with enthusiasm since that vote, with lots of people stepping up to volunteer in different capacities at Doty in support of our kids and the staff of our school. We're excited and energized more than ever to become directly or indirectly involved to support our town's small and wonderful school, which we love and value. We in Worcester are one example among many of what has made rural Vermont a vibrant and healthy place to live for so many years. Vermont's small towns comprise the vast majority of our whole state, and they make this a wonderful place to live. If we're forced into more and more consolidation of our towns and school districts, including the closing of more and more of our small schools, it will change rural Vermont forever. As well, as you know, there's a lot of research that shows that young children benefit from attending school in their own community. In my years of teaching at Doty, it was really fun, as well as quite powerful, to take my class outside to observe and learn about the ecology of our own schoolyard and the woods and streams and fields that surround us here in Worcester, and to interact with our own neighbors in a variety of meaningful ways, to engage in oral history interviews with elders of our town who could tell us about what life was like here in years gone by, and to come together as an intimate community in many other ways, including for potluck meals and performances where every child knew they belonged and were seen. Many children don't live in a place where such opportunities are possible, but we do. It makes sense to begin to combine students from small neighboring elementary schools into a shared middle school, and possibly even further to consolidate high school age students from a larger region into a single high school. But I really hope our district can come together creatively to take a stand in support of each of our small towns that want to continue to educate our young children in the small school of our own town, as long as this continues to offer good educational opportunities for our kids.
Thank you. Next person in person? Lila?
No.
No, sorry.
Linda.
Lynn.
I've been attending these meetings now for probably 2 years, pretty regularly, and all of the coffee and conversations. I'm Linda Gray from Calais. And you might think that I have nothing else to do, but you wouldn't want the week that I've just had. So I want to point out that the people who are online and here are some of the busiest people I know. We're not here because we have nothing else to do. We're not here because we don't know anything about education. Many of us are educators or lawyers or researchers. And I really oppose moving the pre-K and K up to East Montpelier. And when some members of this group proposed maybe they should come down to Calais, you heard lots of people from East Montpelier upset about moving their young kids to Calais. I don't think it's because of Calais. I don't think it's because of our school or anything. They don't want to move their small kids. And I think you build a school from the bottom up. This is where the parents learn to meet each other. This is how they come in and they say, who are you and who's your kid? That's how the school develops its community. And Stephen Dellinger Pate said several times in public meetings he would not move a class unless it just had 2 or 3 students. So it was not all that clear before the vote what would happen after the vote if it went this way. I think the board really didn't want to think about what would happen if Calais voted to keep the school open, but we did. You wouldn't exist if that vote hadn't happened, if it hadn't been required when the district was formed. Each town got that right to do that vote. And so we did it. And it's been contentious. It's been quite difficult. And I'm watching people trying to repair this. I think if you do this, you'll hear about it in 30 years or in 60 years. Because when I came to town 47 years ago, I heard about something that had happened 30 years prior to that of school consolidation, about how U32 was formed. You all know the story. Montpelier was in, they were out, they were in, they were out. And board members had a hard time even recovering from that. It was very difficult. Don't pit one town against the other. It's not right. It's just not right. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Barry?
Yeah, Barry Bernstein from East Calais. I just wanted to go back a little bit about the history when people ask about some of the questions that you just were doing your training on. In November 30th, 2018, when the district was formed, forced by many people in the towns as a result of Act 46, each town was given 3 representatives. There was a reason for that. They wanted the towns to we wanted to keep our voice on this district board when we gave up our local school boards. I've been on many boards, as I've said before, and there is a balance. You are a district, but there are significant differences between our towns. Calais and Worcester are the 2 most rural towns in our area. There's a different economic makeup, different cultural makeup, educational makeup. When I went around and talked to people about getting signatures, it was almost overwhelmingly all the Vermonters who've lived in town or been there for a long, long time who wanted to keep our schools open. And as part of that consolidation, each town was given the right to say no to closing their local schools. I think all of us have seen what's going on with Act 181. You know, I've been an environmentalist all my life by the way I live and act, not just because I believe in certain things. And Act 81 has some very admirable goals. But the reaction has been overwhelming because people in more rural towns are feeling the economic divide and the cultural divide and the class divide. And when Natasha made her comments, it's what a lot of the people I talk to who live on my road, who've lived there all their lives, are feeling. Now, I'm not a native Vermonter, but I have been here 56 years. And I look around the room, and as Daniel said, we don't want all 42-year-old white men on the. Doesn't mean that they can't think differently and that we all don't think differently. But if you really get into the communities, you'll understand, and I've said this before, in a difference with Flora, the best educational outcome is viewed very differently by different people. The lessons I've learned by being in Vermont for the last 56 years have been overwhelmingly positive, but they've been very different from my business experience, my corporate experience, my inner city experience, living overseas. It's a different way of looking at things. And Vermonters are really feeling that they're losing out on losing their communities and having people hear from them. And, you know, and Daniel was very open about this, and I appreciate it. But when we had the first meeting I went to at Calais, and he said, this is a listening session, but the decision was already made, it made most people very angry. Is that 90 seconds, or is that okay? So, again, I think the process hasn't been great. I really hope you will take a look at this. I've heard different numbers. Stephen could tell the most recent, but I've heard there's 16 kids that would attend pre-K and 3, and another 4 or 5 for kindergarten. Calais has 2 open classrooms besides these. We have 2 good teachers. I think we should.
Barry, I don't want to be rude, but we do need to hear from the next person.
Hi, my name is Emily Alfano. I'm an East Montpelier resident. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Actually, no, I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. It's late, I should be in bed. So I live in East Montpelier now. I grew up in East Calais. I went to Calais Elementary School. Yesterday, I submitted a letter to this board from 220 members of our district. That letter now actually has 225 signatories. These signatures were collected in about a week from residents of all 5 towns, including 15% of those signatures from Calais. That letter asked the board to resist calls to second-guess the administration's decision regarding the 3 pre-K hubs at East Montpelier, Berlin, and Rumney. You all have the letter, so I'm not going to read it here. It's available on the board correspondence website, I believe. I want to say the board's conversation tonight has actually been really reassuring. When you discussed the pre-K scenario, what I heard you saying was that you believe it's the board's role to get clarity about how these decisions were made, and then communicate that to the community. So with that in mind, while I really understand and respect the passion of my Calais neighbors and their right to advocate for what they believe, I believe it's time to move on. As you know, declining enrollment is not a temporary hurdle for one town. This is a systemic reality for our district. This isn't the first difficult decision that the board has had to make. It's not going to be the last one. District families really need to be able to trust that when a decision is made, we're going to stick to it. If that doesn't happen, then it's hard to see how every single decision won't be at the mercy of the most vocal community members. That is not what's best for our kids. That is not the stability that parents like me need. So the response that I received to the letter seemed to indicate that the board agrees that the pre-K plan is going to move forward as is. It might be helpful if the board could affirm that position publicly so we can stop having this conversation and truly move forward in the district to make sure that all of our kids get the world-class education they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And also, Cynthia, were you going to leave the petition with us, or?
I will leave it with you. I'd like to leave it tomorrow because I'd like to organize it better.
Yes,
And
that's fine.
I would also ask that it be posted on the website
Yes.
where you have those public comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we will move on to the next part, which is the reflection, board reflections. And we had said that actually it's called reflections because it's board and superintendent. So any reflections of the meeting? Natasha?
I really appreciated the training we received, and 2 hours is too long for a training in a board meeting. I think the information was great. I think she did a great job. We had really wonderful conversation, and it was too long. The other reflection I have is I would appreciate, if possible, that the time that the meeting says that it's going to be is accurate. And I understand we go over, but if you add up the minutes in the agenda, it goes past 9:15. And as a single parent needing to figure out all the things I need to figure out, I rely on a more accurate ending time, so.
Thank you.
Just everything she said. Again, 100%.
Ditto. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, I just want to say I also appreciate the training. I thought it was really well done, and I thought there was really good information that was provided and a lot for me to kind of think about and consider as I process everything. I also think the meeting and the conversation that we had in the training really makes me think about communication and how critical that is. And the reason I say that is because often when I hear our community feeling divisive or divided, a lot of terms will come up, things like consistency and stability. And I think there's work to be done in understanding not just what those terms mean, but what those terms mean to us as a district, because I think that there are differing opinions on what that means, and I think that that would help to move us forward, to help us be progressive and move forward and be able to feel more solid with what we're doing, and also help our community understand what does consistency look like and stability look like, because I think that's a big thing right now.
Thank you. Other board members? Superintendent?
I just appreciate the training tonight, and some of the board comments are very much appreciated to help me know expectations, and I hope we can continue these conversations in the future.
Future agenda items, Sashley was, excuse me, she has created a document that she said she would put a hyperlink in, and I'm not seeing the hyperlink in that.
I'll double check.
So we will double check that. It was quite lengthy, and so I will make sure that you all have that hyperlink. We do have 2 executive sessions that are proposed. Do we have a motion?
Yeah. I move that the board enter into executive session to include Stephen Dellinger Pate for the purpose of considering student residency exemption requests. And I note that we never put the word exemption in there, but I think that's really what they are.
Yes.
So.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion?
No.
I move we support the administration's recommendation regarding student residency request exemptions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, next motion.
All right. Patrick, I move that the board enter executive session for the purposes of a personnel matter to include Stephen Dellinger Pate.
And
And Caroline May and Gillian Fuqua.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
As secretary, I note that we have left executive session and no action is being taken. And
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.